Next question. Okay, podcast question. How does it feel to do Tim Ferriss podcast, Joe Rogan podcast, and get thousands of followers listening to your podcast, reading your book, etc.? Do you worry that some of your fans place you on a pedestal and engage in hero worship?
Yeah, so this is a question that I was actually not going to do because I was a little bit uncomfortable with it. And then I was like, okay, why are you uncomfortable with it? It's not that big of a deal. Although I will say, like, it does make me feel uncomfortable to think of people thinking of me in a heroic way or whatever. That does feel strange to me. As far as being on Rogan and Ferriss and Sam Harris and doing some of these podcasts, it's, it was really cool. It's definitely, meeting people all the time as I travel and meeting people that have read our book and have gotten a lot out of it, and that feels very rewarding. It feels very rewarding. It feels great when someone says, hey, I use this chapter, or hey, your book. I mean, people are saying that, hey, your book changed my life. And I take that with a grain of salt, but it feels good. It feels positive. I like that. I want to help people. And so that feels good. But as far as, it's not that, like my social media presence, which I had zero before, and now I have it, and it's not really that big of a deal because it's just me. I'm still just me, and there's nothing that's different or has changed. And when we talk about doing this podcast, we don't talk about how we should act or how I should act to get more people to listen to it. Right. I'm only doing what I'm doing because this is me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be different in order to achieve anything else. I'm only going to be who I am. And that's why the thought of people putting me on a pedestal or whatever, I know that I'm just a person. And I think that it might be how I get presented, by the media, how I get presented even on this podcast. When I'm on this podcast talking to you, we're talking about specific subjects that we are interested in. And it's not, I could see where someone might think, oh, Jocko's this superhuman. And no, I know I'm not. So if I come across like that, it's only because you're seeing a sliver of me that appears that way.
Right.
I'm not saying I know I'm not totally normal as well. I mean, I know I'm not a normal person. I know I'm a little bit to the edge of, being a little bit
extreme.
Yeah, a little bit extreme-ish in some ways. Yeah. And I know a lot of that just has to do with my habits as a person. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is that no matter what happens and no matter what I come across and no matter what people might perceive me as, I don't perceive myself as special or as a hero for sure. Because, and one thing that will always stay with me is that I've been in combat and I've been humbled by combat. Mm-hmm. And I think that I've been on the battlefield and I've been confused and I've been outmaneuvered and I've had my guys killed. And so I know what a real hero is. Mm-hmm. And it ain't me. And that's always going to keep me grounded. And I will never forget that. Yeah,
and you, as far as being worried about people putting you on a pedestal, like how you're saying, you be you, and that's all you're going to do is be you. You're not trying to live up to anyone's expectation. That was never a goal of yours.
No.
So if someone has an expectation, since that's not your goal, how can you worry about it? You're going to continue to be you. And here's, I don't know if it's irony, but the more you do that and just be just authentic or whatever, it seems to draw more people to you.
I guess, but I don't know, because I'm not acting any other way than I acted a year ago or, 4 years ago. I'm just, you know what I do? I train jiu-jitsu. I work out. I wake up early in the morning. I try and get smarter. I try and do better.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just gonna, I'm me. And I actually, I'll tell you, this is interesting, is that people that I interact with now, I enjoy it and I get something out of it. I'm taking away, they're giving me as much inspiration as I'm giving them.
Yeah.
There's one girl on Twitter, and I don't want to say her name because I mean it's I don't know how, I don't like to disrupt people's privacy. I mean, she's on Twitter, but she's a clearly a little bit of an older lady. She's a cancer survivor. I mean, when I say older, I mean she's at least in her 60s. And she put a picture on the internet the other day on Twitter of her at the gym, and she's got, like a kettlebell, a medicine ball, and an oxygen tank.
In the game.
Cause she's in there working out.
Yeah.
And she's, I got to bring my oxygen tank because of, I don't know specifically why, but hey man, if she can bring an oxygen tank to the gym and get after it at, age 65 or 70, that's inspiring. And I can get up and get after it and do my piece just at least just as well as she could. And so I think that's what's been interesting about this is seeing other people that are fired up. And that's another thing that kind of happened early on in this journey for me. I have not a bunch of friends, but one of my friends who's a SEAL, when I was just about, I think I had recorded the Tim Ferriss podcast, and I knew it was going to be released, and I knew it was going to be heard by people. And when I got back, I texted my friend, and I said, hey, I did this podcast, and it's going to be released, and I'm going to be one of them. And what I meant by that was one of these guys that sold out, for lack of a better word. Right. And I'm out there, I'm a Navy SEAL and I'm the biggest, baddest guy, because there's plenty of those guys out there. Yeah. And now I'm going to be one of those guys. And so I said, I'm going to be one of them now. Sorry. And he wrote me back and he said, that's awesome. And we got so many guys running around saying all kinds of stuff. You should be out there representing. Yeah. You should be. And he went on to say something even more powerful. And he said, you know what? There's a lot of people in this world that need a role model, that need a dad. I needed a dad. I needed a father figure. And that's what you were for me.
Dang. Yeah.
And for you to go out there and be out there in the world and be that role model for other people, it's awesome and you should do it. And I love the fact that you're doing it.
Yeah.
And when he wrote that to me, it kind of changed my attitude.
Yeah.
Because I did look at the role models that people look at. And I said to myself, and again, I think part of what might make me a good role model is that I don't think I'm a good role model because I'm still trying to get better. And I've done all kinds of stupid stuff. We need to have a dozen podcasts on the stupid things I've done in my life and talk about the mistakes I've made growing up and all the that's another thing. Like when people see me on the podcast or they hear me on the podcast or they read the book, they're seeing the good part, right? They're seeing, I would hesitate to say, but they're seeing the best part of me. Right. They're seeing a mature person. I'm not that mature, but they're seeing the older, the maturest that I've ever been, which is right now. Mm-hmm. They're not seeing the idiot, growing dummy that I was and that many of us were when we were younger. Yeah. Now, might I have had a little edge? A little bit of advantage. Maybe I was a little bit ahead in some cases, but man, I didn't, Yeah. And so that when I got that text, that was a series of texts from my brother, that really gave me a different attitude on this whole thing, and it made me feel more comfortable with the fact that I was selling out and that I was now going to be out there in the public view. And all this being said, at some point, I'm probably going to go right back to the cave that I came from. Yeah. And I don't want, I don't have what Patton had, which is like this huge desire to be famous. I have no problem not being, I was unrecognizable to the world for my whole life. Mm. And the fact that I'm a little bit recognizable now, it doesn't make me feel great. It doesn't do anything for me. Yeah. I'm just doing what I do. It's not my goal. But is there a goal to try and help some people out there? Yes. And I think hearing that from that buddy of mine made me solidify that goal a little bit. And again, not to try and say, hey, be like me. No, it's to say, learn from what I learned from. Yeah. I did some dumb stuff. I've been through some stuff that most people don't have to go through. So if you can take something away from it, awesome. Don't worship me by any stretch. Yeah. But let's work together and see if we can get better as a team.
Yeah, and you're a good, a lot of your messages and the things that you say, a lot of it is new, and then a lot of it's not new, right? No. So this is one point where, some of this stuff people may have heard before, but someone like you who's done what you've done and think the way you think and do what you do right now, you're the perfect medium for that information to get passed on to someone. You know, when you're a teenager or something, your dad tells you to do something, your mom tells you to do something, you're like, fuck that. But then when you go to your friend's house and then he tells you to do it, the exact same thing, and you're like, yeah. It takes that same message, but from someone who you can, for lack of a better way of putting it, someone you can accept it from. Mm-hmm. And so all your messages are perfectly in line with who you are. So they're so, you're so eager to accept them. Mm-hmm. So like how you post, online, you'll post a picture of your watch every morning in your kind of the workout setting and stuff like that. And your message, more or less, is get up every morning and get your work done, get a workout in, whatever. And then you're doing it. And there's the proof right there. Mm-hmm. So if you're just some dude who's like, yeah, work out every day, and you don't do it, then it's like, it's going to be harder to accept. So people will get those messages. And they'll internalize them way more readily from someone like you, given the messages that you're sending. That's one. Two, the whole broadcasting yourself thing is totally understandable for someone like you, and that it's good that you kind of got turned on to the notion that it's more, you have really good messages and good content that will improve people in their life, whether it be older people, younger people, girls, guys, everything. And this is, especially like a podcast situation or even like certain online profiles and stuff, they're good ways to get that information out that people need, man. Like to improve themselves. Like if you're in a neighborhood or an environment with a bunch of people improving themselves, that's going to be a good neighborhood. And if they have the means to improve themselves, then that's a good service that you're putting out there, and to reach as many people as you do, you're helping the world with your message.
Well, Okay.
I'm telling you. So I'm saying broadcasting yourself is a good thing.
Yeah, it definitely was a hard thing to overcome the aversion
Yeah.
to broadcasting yourself, which is something I talked about with Tim Ferriss, and I talked about it with Joe Rogan, is this idea of people that are talking.
Yeah.
And, you look at the extreme examples of social media,
Abusers
and worthlessness,
Yeah.
And you just don't want to have anything to do with them.
Yeah.
And when you're doing it, regardless of how much you don't want to have anything to do with them, you have something to do with them because you're doing it too. And it's very difficult for me not to feel like that. Now, obviously, I've gotten over it. I mean,
Right.
I've gotten over it to a point where I'm saying, okay, these are kind of the acceptable parameters that I operate within for my personality,
Right.
which is there's things that I haven't done and I won't do on social media,
Right. Yeah.
because I'm not there to promote me,
Yeah.
but I'm there to only open a door of observation, I would say. Not to knock on people's door and enter, but just to open the door of observation and say, this is how I try to live. And this is the steps that I take to try and live that way. Observe.
Yeah.
And if you want to enter my house and hang out with me, come on in.
Yeah.
As long as you're like-minded and you have the same sort of goals, then come on in. And you know what? You're going to make me stronger.
Yeah.
You're going to bolster me up. So many people now, they're posting pictures of their watches on my Twitter.
Yeah.
When I wake up, I'm looking at 50 to 100 watches every
yeah.
day.
Yeah, man. That's
And I'm
good.
going, wow, that's a lot of people. And that is unity, and that is leadership. And it does make me feel like, oh, okay, cool. There's other people in the world that are up and getting after it.
Yeah, there's
at
a guy-
420.
Yeah, and there's a guy who's a teacher, posts good. I don't know.
He's a
I don't
teacher.
know-
He posted good on his
good.
classroom door.
Yeah, on his classroom door, man. And so now he's kind of pushing those good messages to the kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's all positive. Social media, it is easy to get that attitude towards it because of all the people who abuse it, quote
Right,
unquote.
right.
But like if you went, I don't know, like on the highway and all you saw was people speeding, reckless driving, it still doesn't change the fact that you still want to drive on the highway because you have something to do. You know, your pursuit is different. But yeah, there's gonna be everyone.
The other weird thing is I have no idea where this is going. You know, and so like this podcast, I didn't. We just kind of did it. I went on with Tim Ferriss and just kind of did it. I started Twitter. I had no idea what that was going to be.
Yeah.
And so it's fun for me to be adventuring into things that I don't know the outcome of.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. And Twitter is one of them. The book was one of them. And, I don't know what's around the corner next. And I don't know where this is going. But I will stay with the principles that I believe in to the best of my ability. And I think that's what makes it an interesting ride is where's that going to go?
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Well.